Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends with myself, Kody Kinzie, a security researcher at Varonis, and a special mystery guest. Is it Alex? It's been Alex for such a long time. How could it be anybody but Alex? Well, in fact, it isn't Alex, as you might have been able to tell by this very clever and attractive mask. Mystery guest, reveal yourself.
The grand Sasquatch hunter himself.
He returns from the woods to answer your questions about cybersecurity and hacking and cryptozoology, not cryptocurrency. We cannot answer any questions about that. So if you have any questions about hacking, about any of the stuff I've been working on, feel free to address them to me. And of course, if you have any questions for Michael, cryptozoology or hacking related, you can ask as well. We're going to be going back through our YouTube videos and looking for questions to answer, as well as answering questions that have come in on Twitter. And of course, if you are in the live audience, we will also take your questions and prioritize them because we like anybody that chooses to spend apparently 1 a.m. in the UK hanging out with us. So I'm so glad that we finally managed to reach you at your peak time. Everybody that's now apparently at 1
And
a.m.
everyone who's watching us instead of Linus Tech Tips right now, we greatly appreciate.
Don't tell them that everybody else is on. Why would you tell them that? Okay, so today we have lots of different stuff to cover. I personally have some really fun news with this awesome little S2 nugget that I've been working with. So I spent the weekend writing a mouse jiggler.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
when I turn it on, it starts up, it recognizes itself as a mouse on the computer, and then when I press this button, it does a cool little animation of a nugget face that's jiggling, and it jiggles the mouse so the computer won't go to sleep. So Michael, what is a mouse jiggler usually? Who uses a mouse jiggler and for what? There's two main groups.
I was going to say the main...
Cheaters and cops, but go on.
I wasn't going to... Oh, I guess cops too, but like I know some people who have like work programs that like force like lock their screen and they're lazy, or they'll put mouse jigglers so that way they don't have to log back into their computer, but also like you said, cheaters in video games. So a lot of video games that are really popular have queue times. Mm-hmm. So what they'll do is once they get through that queue and they are done playing, they'll just put on a mouse jiggler, makes them look like they're still active, and then they don't get force logged out.
Oh, Zam also says LTT is on Friday, girl.
Okay. I'm sorry. I've revealed myself as not a true fan.
Oops. Whoops. But anyway, yeah. So another very popular use for mouse jigglers is if a hacker is going to get arrested by the cops, then they want to make sure that that hacker's computer doesn't get locked down the second that they tackle the person, because then they have to try to get the password, and it's a lot more difficult than intercepting the computer while it's still fully unlocked. So a mouse jiggler, when inserted, will move the mouse just enough to prevent the computer from locking so that they don't need to worry about the passwords all kicking in and the computer locking itself down. So basically designed to keep a computer active, although it can also be very easily turned into a mouse clicker, which is used by cheaters who want to like mine resources on video games and stuff like that.
I've also, well, now I forgot the thought. But yeah, I've seen it. Oh, that's right. Practical joke. I've seen it. There used to be like a USB device that you could discreetly plug into a computer, and it had like a little dial where you could dial how frequently it would just like randomly move the mouse. They made it so you didn't click on anything, just so you didn't do anything like accidentally. Like, so.
Yeah. So I've been learning CircuitPython on this little ESP32 S2 based board, and I've been able to basically emulate a mouse so I can move around with 4 buttons and then click with the 5th button and do a lot of other really cool stuff too. So if you're interested in HID attacks, stay tuned to Hack 5 because we're going to be doing a series on creating a virtual mouse and all the sneaky things you can do with it. My personal favorite is setting it so that it just slams the mouse into the corner of the screen like repeatedly so you can't use it just at random intervals. So I've started coming up with a couple programs that I think are both like securely related and some are just obnoxious. So if you want to learn about how to turn a little microcontroller into a mouse that does all sorts of funny stuff, then stay tuned to that. You can also look at hackhat.com to see the S2 nugget, which we're using as a mouse in these examples. So
would it be possible to modify a HID device like the Wi-Fi duck to have like mouse component as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know that the Wi-Fi duck currently does that, but if you were to just make like a little pad you can move around on, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be an awesome project.
And also, hello to Millstorm, who is catching us for the first time live. It's nice to catch you live as well. So we have a good amount of questions. And also, someone says, doesn't Elliot would just destroy his computer to get around the mouse jiggler? So yeah, I mean, if you're going to drill all the components and put them in the microwave, then yes. I guess the mouse jiggler might not help in that case.
Well, also, when it was attempted to be used against me, I discovered that if you frequently use the back of your computer, it's not a very effective like attack. Because normally, like when you plug in the prank device, you would plug it in somewhere where they don't normally look.
Yeah, so I learned that I can just like basically put it at the end of another USB cable and then like just make it really long so that the offensive part like isn't in the back. Then it just looks like a regular cable. So there's kind of a...
That also works with like keystroke logging.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about using CircuitPython, which is a really easy language maintained by Adafruit for beginners to get into, to make a HID mouse or HID device, it's actually really super easy. And I think it's really cool if you've never messed around with HID attacks before. So just that's what I've been working on. Michael, what have you been working on? Anything to let people in on what our team has been up to lately?
I mean, obviously there's the Nugget. Which is a great project. And if you're getting into basic Wi-Fi hacking, I haven't really been having a ton of projects lately
You've been in the
myself.
woods. Yeah, you've been in the woods.
Yeah, I've been hunting the Squatch, and I've had amazing results.
All right, well, go ahead and pull them up. Let's see our first Squatch-related question.
Well, you see...
Go on, pull up the first question.
The cryptological effects of a cryptozoology monster affects the camera, so my pictures got encrypted and I can't show them to you.
Question you have then.
But I can read you a question from our videos. Okay, so one of the questions we had was on the product I mentioned, the Wi-Fi Nugget. Anyone else ever toss something like this in their wife's purse so they can find them in a crowded store? I did it with a hotspot once during the holiday shopping season. So much easier. She knew it was there.
Okay, so we're basically talking about how you could find someone by creating an access point in their pocket. So basically, if they were creating a Wi-Fi network, could you track them down, Michael?
Oh, absolutely. You could just do hot and cold, just using your phone, seeing how strong the signal is, or a Nugget, or anything that'll let you see the actual RSSI, receive signal intensity.
Yes.
If you had multiple fixed stations, you could do triangulation. That would take a little... That's probably not something you would do in a store. But there are also other things like people in the comments after mentioned. You could, Apple AirTags. I know that stores actually were getting in trouble for doing this for a while, where they would have multiple Wi-Fi receivers logging the devices that would, come in the store and then track them.
So for me, there's two different types of tracking. There's omnidirectional and directional. So if you had like a microcontroller that has a Wi-Fi antenna that's omnidirectional, so it's getting an equal signal from every direction, then again, like Michael said, it would be kind of like a hot and cold thing where you would need to walk around and look for the signal strength to go up. If you had a directional antenna, then instead you could make it so you have a panel antenna or something that's focused like a flashlight, and then kind of move it around in order to find where the direction that the signal is strongest, and then you could move closer to that and then do another sweep, and that would just completely cut down on the amount of time that it takes you to find the source of a signal. So could you just drop an access point in someone's pocket and then use that as a way of tracking them? Yeah, you totally could actually, especially if you had a directional antenna, because omnidirectional ones can really only tell you when you're getting hot or cold. So yeah, that's a pretty good question.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's this other product that I've seen at several hacker conferences as well, the Dope Scope. Basically, it's like that. It's an ESP little device you hold up to your eye, but it has a directional antenna as opposed to omnidirectional antenna, and it'll show you on a screen the received signal intensity. But we had a related question with the Wi-Fi Nugget. Can the person directly upgrade it to an ESP32S2, I think? Yes?
No. So the Wi-Fi Nugget is a breakout board for the D1 mini form factor. So that was originally an ESP8266. The way that it comes pre-assembled, you basically have the shortest possible pin headers to make it small and fit into a case. And that means that unless you just desolder 2 rows of pins simultaneously and pull it off and replace it with a new microcontroller, some people might want to do that. So technically yes, but nobody actually wants to do that because it sucks. So if you were to get an unassembled kit and you put long pin headers on the back, so you could just put in a D1 Mini, take it out, put in an S2, then yeah, you absolutely could. Because really there's development boards for the ESP8266 and the ESP32S2 that have the exact same footprint. And that's why we're able to have the same breakout board work with 2 different microcontrollers. But once it's soldered in there, if you use short pin headers to just make it really small, it's really hard to take that off. So yeah, technically it's possible. It's not fun unless you get an unassembled one and put it together yourself with longer pin headers. So it would be a little bit bulkier, but you could just mix and match with whatever D1 mini form factor microcontroller you want to put on there. So that's a very good question. I also want to acknowledge Zam said, a little birdie told me about an MFA vulnerability. Michael, do you know anything about that?
I don't know specifically what they're talking about.
It's perhaps something that you worked on.
Yes, the Varonis thing.
Yes, the Varonis thing.
Sorry. I was pulling up an answer to another question.
Okay, well, let's go to my screen then.
Yeah.
So over on my screen, you can see, as Michael so tactfully put it, the Varonis thing, which was a disclosure that Varonis put out where their security research team found a bypass in Box's MFA setup. So if you were using Box and you set up MFA, then there's actually a way, if a hacker was able to find your username and password, that they could bypass MFA and actually get into your account. Michael, do you remember how it works? I'll give you a little hint by going to the actual attack flow.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it's been a sec.
Okay,
Yeah.
So the way that this works is if you log into Box and get all the way to the point it prompts you for the MFA token, which is usually like Google Authenticator or something, then you can send an API request that will basically unenroll the user from MFA. So at that point, you just log back in with the same credentials and you're into the account. And it's really the fact that once you log in like partially to Box, it gives you elevated privileges to access some of these endpoints via API. And that can allow you to just because this has now been fixed, allow you to just unenroll the user from MFA. So kind of spooky because there's a lot of different, other cloud applications that might work this way. This is like one example of a partial login process that gives inappropriate access to a certain endpoint that basically nullifies the protection that's supposed to be guaranteed by MFA. So this is very scary for anybody who requires MFA in order to log in or is feeling protected by it, because like obviously it means that MFA isn't actually working very well. So a big shout out to the Varonis team on finding this and reporting it through BugCrowd and getting it resolved. So I really like that Varonis does stuff for the community, and this is one of those things where it doesn't benefit them to do this. This is just something they do to make sure the software works and that it's a little bit safer for their customers and everyone else. So Tal Peleg, which I tried to look up more work by Tal, and apparently there's a makeup artist who's very extremely famous who also has the exact same name. So sorry to Tal if you're trying to find more of his full stack hacks. It's a little bit hard to find. You have to do some Google foo to get rid of the makeup artist lady.
Sorry, my brain is now caught up to what we were talking about.
Okay.
What's really interesting to me about this too is, in my API video, I showed some of the basic, all the information you would need to be able to find a vulnerability like this. And it's kind of amazing to me that such a big vulnerability could, in theory, have been found by basically anyone just snooping around the API for a couple of minutes.
Not just anyone. Tal.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Tal.
Yeah, but no, it's really interesting. You used to be able to just basically send one API request and turn off two-factor authentication. That's really spooky to me.
Yeah, so if you want to see the attack in action, I am the narrator. I feel like somebody who's been asked to do a nature documentary. I did not find this, but I guess they're just your voice is soothing. Go ahead and we want you to narrate it. So I personally narrated and Michael edited this MFA bypass video. So if you want to see how this attack works, it's so simple and elegant. I really think this is cool, and I really appreciate having a role in helping to report it. So I'll drop the link to this in the chat. And it was just very, very cool. If you haven't checked it out already, it's just an interesting example of how if someone buys credentials on the darknet and is going to go and start trying to log into people's accounts, then MFA might not be enough to protect you if there's something like this that's known to hackers. So that could make a bunch of stolen credentials a lot more useful than one might think. All right, away from my screen.
Okay, I can actually show my screen in just
do
a
it.
second. So back to the Wi-Fi thing. This is why my brain was not computing. Yes, it is possible to map Wi-Fi. The Thought Emporium actually has a really good video on this, but in theory, you could take a directional antenna and do this and get a receive signal intensity map of Wi-Fi. In theory, you could do that for a particular device as well. So you could see very granularly where that device is. I don't know. I think, here he basically has a Yagi antenna on a little mount that just moves around.
Looks like Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
Like in grotesque amounts of pain.
Yeah, it looks awful. But so yeah, it is possible to get really detailed maps of where Wi-Fi devices are.
Yikes. Yeah, but at what cost?
Yeah,
Like-
at what cost? I mean, like, do you mean like in financial cost or like
No, I mean
toil
like that
and
thing,
work?
That thing just looks like a scary prototype that I would
Yeah.
buy. Okay, so one question that I'm intrigued by is, could you somehow output the signal strength of a device that I want to track in relation to a compass direction, and then show it in a terminal? Yes, you can. And in fact, this is something that I wanted to automate, and I haven't had time to do it, so maybe you should do it. Basically, if you have a servo and you have a directional Wi-Fi antenna that you can rotate in an arc, you can basically record the direction of the arc as well as the signal strength very easily. That's not hard at all. If you wanted to also include like a PCB compass or something else to find the compass direction, you could very easily map the arc of that to compass directions and then basically get a map of what direction all the Wi-Fi access points or devices around you are just by doing a sweep back and forth and recording the point of the arc at which the signal strength was strongest. So you could totally do that. But again, you would need to have a directional Wi-Fi antenna, something that like goes out like a spotlight rather than like a lamp. So that would be something like a Yagi antenna, a panel antenna, a parabolic antenna. And if you want to look at some of those, our good friends at simplewifi.com have a really good variety of different ones. Of course, Alpha Wireless also has a lot of really good, somewhat cheaper sometimes compared to Simple Wi-Fi directional antennas you can check out. Because that sounds like a really cool project, and I would love to see it work.
Yeah, I don't really have. I was having trouble finding it, but the Kraken SDR by RTL SDR, you can actually do Wi-Fi direction finding and get exactly that compass view you were talking about. But also, it can work in a very wide swath of the radio spectrum, so you could use it to track down any radio emitting source.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that's a little above what you were asking, but yes.
yeah. Okay, shall I do another question?
Yeah, let's do it.
The pre-prepared. What laptop do we use?
Oh boy, that's a sensitive subject. Michael, what laptop do you use?
Well, as far as laptop, I just use this company MacBook. It's okay. I don't
It was
do
given
it.
to us by Hack5,
Yeah.
actually, so thank you, Darren, for that.
Yes, thank you, Darren. Yeah, it works well. I prefer Windows on desktop. But
And yet you don't.
what? Oh. Okay. Yeah, I prefer Windows, but that's just because of like gaming and stuff. If I were doing a bunch of hacking tools, I would definitely like use more Linux.
So this is a company computer that was bought for me, and I hate this 2019 MacBook Pro more than any computer I've ever owned, except for one. So this is the second most hated computer I've ever had. It can't do any like interesting hacking stuff. The wireless availability, the ability to like mess with wireless cards, even in a virtual machine, is extremely locked down and restricted. It is an unfun computer to do hacking stuff on. I have an older ThinkPad that is just fine. It's like 4 years old and it had a giant optical drive I replaced with a second hard drive. That is running Ubuntu, what I do the majority of my security research with, whereas most of my like presentations and like research and stuff I do on the MacBook Pro just because that's why, because someone bought it for me, so I use it. Do I recommend this for people who want to do hacking stuff? No, no, I don't. I hear new things that are maybe not so bad about the like recent like custom silicone Apple like MacBooks, but I haven't tried one
Oh, the
yet.
M1 MacBooks?
Yeah, like the M1 MacBooks. I was
Oh.
going to get one, but they didn't have one in the right size, and now I kind of regret it. So yeah, this computer is not great for hacking. Don't use it. But if you want to go with like a ThinkPad, then those tend to be
What we
more.
need is a RISC-V based laptop that performs well.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah, I'll get
Yeah.
right on that.
And of course, you do want to go ahead and run Temple OS as
Yeah,
as a
of course.
suggestion
That is
in
the
chat.
best
It's the most
OS.
efficient gaming and also hacking operating system out there.
It's
So,
got some really elite games. with
yeah,
it.
please check out our series on Temple OS if you want to learn more.
Okay. How to hack Android without installing or sending any APK?
First, I want to like acknowledge the flex or perhaps fold that Zam is pulling on us by mentioning that he has a ThinkPad X1 Fold.
Oh.
Yeah, we would like one too.
Isn't
Zam.
that the
That's brilliant.
space computer?
Yeah, so basically, like Zam somehow found out a way to use this computer that I've only ever seen in advertisements with astronauts using it. So either Zam is actually secretly an astronaut, or they recently changed their requirements because in their marketing material, it was only astronauts using this computer. I was like, damn.
We're not supposed to tell them about the secret moon base.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, cool. All right. And Zam does mention all true hackers use TempleOS. All right. So this question is about like hacking an Android phone without sending an APK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
How to hack Android without installing or sending any APK.
BNSO group before they got banned by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Now there's another one that's like the name of like an evil fish that also does the same thing. There's a lot of cyber mercenary groups that specialize in hoarding 0-day or buying 0-day vulnerabilities to enable basically exactly that. And they're getting sued. A lot of them are being sued because nobody likes them. So that's the easiest way to do it. But unfortunately, if I had a 0-day vulnerability like that, I could either turn it into Google and make like, I don't know, $500, or I could sell it to NSO Group and make like $1 million.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not going to be telling you on the chat. All right, next question.
Okay. Yeah,
Or sorry if you got something.
Yeah, basically, I think also that's one of those questions where you have to kind of term, like, what do you mean by hack Android? Because, like, sometimes I find people ask things like that, but really they mean, like, oh, how can you hack, like, an app like Facebook or something like that? And, it's, like, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But, yeah. And also, like, if you wanted to do something persistent, it's hard to do something persistent without an APK.
Yeah, so overall, the hardest part to answer when we have questions like this is like, what do you mean by hack? Do you want full root level access to the phone? Well,
Right.
you're gonna have a jailbreak or whatever. Like, you know, like if you just want access to one app, do you want access to the phone's location? Do you want access to the phone's data? As Andre is suggesting, there's ways of doing this. Like for example, yeah, you could hook the browser of the phone using Beef, and then you could try to remain persistent and look at the local network and try to like pivot or maybe get it to connect to a different network. But it all goes back to like, what do you mean by hack? Like, what do you need to do? Because usually you want to do just the minimum amount to do like what is necessary. Otherwise, if you want to just reformat the phone and write a new operating system, then like obviously you could do that, I guess. But like it's going to be a lot more difficult. So yeah, if you just want to see through the camera because you're, you know, a weird pervert, then like that's a lot less than like like loading a custom new version of the operating system and monitoring everything going through the phone. Like, because some of that you can do with like browser vulnerabilities or other things that might be much more easy and accessible as compared to like trying to break through the manufacturer restrictions on messing with the firmware or doing stuff you're not supposed to do.
And does like Android even by default encrypt the hard drive? Because like in theory, a hack could be like disassembling it and then reading the memory and
take
stuff.
a hammer. I mean, if all you want to do is see what's on the SD card, then whack it with the hammer, take it out, and plug it into your computer. But again, like you really need to be like specific about what you want to do with this because there's a lot of stuff you can do just by grabbing a phone and using it briefly. Like you could set up a quick VPN that goes through a malicious server, and suddenly you have access to all the data going through the phone. Is that what you wanted? Maybe you could install a backdoor APK that can launch other apps or make calls. I used to do that to some of my friends who like sometimes would get into trouble with their permission, of course. And I would be able to, if they like suddenly stopped responding, do things like listen to the audio or initiate a phone call from their phone with a remote data link. Like that to me sounds like, you know, the kind of hacking you're talking about, but I really can't be sure.
Well, like the other hack too would be like back in the day when people had pattern unlock on their phone, like you could just angle the phone and see the smudge marks of where they did the unlock pattern and just unlock their phone that way. I guess that would be a hack, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in general, when submitting questions, I definitely recommend be as specific as possible.
Next up on SecurityFWD, how to ask a question. Question algorithm and syntax for jealous spouses.
Okay.
Yeah, we honestly get a lot of people asking me questions in my DMs and stuff that are just like, hi, I don't trust someone and I choose to exert power over them with technology. Can you help? I'm like, no, I can't. Like, you need to repair trust with that person or just like find another way aside from like violating like probably some computer security law in your country. Because like, frankly, like hacking another person very rarely helps your case, like especially if you already know something's up. So it's just like very strange that people asking me to like fix their relationship when they're already to the point that they want to rifle through their partner's stuff.
My other favorite question is like when they're like, oh, I got locked out of my account. I need to hack my account. I'm like, contact support. There you go. Ta-da. But anyway, so next question here. Is there any information on how to virtually network segment a smart home device through Linux to make it more secure, such as the Yeelight? I have no idea how to network segment, and if possible, would love someone to point me to the right direction. So I think what they're really wanting here is VLAN. Yeah.
Yep.
So certain firewalls will support it. Probably. Yeah, like I know Ubiquity supports it. If you want to watch our video on like setting up pfSense, stuff like that's going to support it. So you can definitely set up VLANs, and in fact, I highly encourage that. At the minimum, I would set up a VLAN specifically for IoT devices, and then keep that separate from the rest of the network. So yeah, that's definitely possible. As far as doing it on Linux, I mean, if you're running some kind of Linux-based firewall, then yeah, but I don't know that it would be possible to do that from just one device on the network. You would have to be doing it from like the network controller, if that makes sense.
So Andre also like pointed out like an interesting twist to the Android hacking. One of them is like if you can set up SMS forwarding, anything you can do to set up SMS forwarding quickly means that you can basically reset that person's accounts.
Ooh.
So like he pointed out that most Westerners use text-based SMS, like SMS-based two-factor authentication, which is a really bad practice because SIM swapping attacks are obviously something that anybody can pull off. But if somebody gets physical access to your phone or sends you a piece of malware that enables SMS forwarding, then that means that as soon as somebody else requests a 2FA code, they get it too, because it would just be forwarded from your phone to theirs. So pretty sneaky. And again, it's really like, do not use SMS-based 2FA. It's no longer secure because of attacks like this, and the fact that phones are no longer as secure, attack surfaces as they used to be. So there's lots of different ways you could potentially enable somebody to look over your shoulder and see that 2FA code that's in like an SMS.
Well, it is interesting because I notice a lot of websites by default just use SMS two-factor authentication. They don't, and it's not like you would think that they would be like, hey, you should use an authenticator, and then if you don't have an authenticator, then they're like begrudgingly, okay, I guess you can use your phone. It's always just by default, give us your phone number, we're going to text it to you. Like half the time, there's not even another option.
Okay, so one person says, we should create our own official Wi-Fi hacking certification. Why do people do this? Like
that sounds like a lot of work.
This is what happens. Like there's a lot of like, I won't name any names, but there's a lot of like kind of like maybe like a little washed up hackers who like don't know, they like don't want to like make any more content. So instead they just like reorganize all the stuff they've made into like a series that like kind of sort of gives you like an overview, and then they like stamp a certification on it that like no one has ever heard of. It's already hard enough for people to figure out like what is like a real certification and what is someone's like vanity project, that like I would feel so bad interjecting more confusing stuff into that, because like like no one's gonna hire you because they've like heard of me. Like maybe, I don't know, like I mean Nullbyte's doing okay, but like I don't know, like I just don't feel like anybody is gonna like look at your job certification and then like deliberately go to my YouTube channel and be like, oh well, if that guy says you're okay, I'll hire you. Maybe I'm totally wrong here, I don't know, but I just always found it funny when like people would create like invent a certification that nobody asked for, that vendors don't, or like employers like have never heard of, that teaches you things that like may or may not be applicable in daily life. But then I looked at like actual real certifications and I felt a lot less bad. So who knows? If you guys really want it, I probably could. But like honestly, I think that certifications are so hard to like prove value from, because they're literally worth exactly the amount that everybody buys into them. So some of these certifications, like if nobody's ever heard of them, I just don't see how they help people. So like I wouldn't want to create something that that like somebody pays a bunch of money for and thinks everyone's going to be impressed by, when in fact nobody's ever heard of it. And like you'll be like, yes, I'm a null certified computer breaker, and they're like, well, that sounds nice. Did they give you a crown too? Like
so mean.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going to keep making content. And I would love to organize it into more like educational modules, and we do have Udemy classes, which I think are easier to provide value in, and they're like cut and dry. They're like, you learn this for whatever, and that's the deal. And those I think are self-contained and good, but certifications are just like funny sometimes, because like some people definitely use them as like, in my opinion, kind of scams, and I would never want to scam anyone. So
yeah. How do we feel about email-based two-factor.
I don't like it. I think that one-time password-based authentications, like Google Authenticator or like a physical key or something, is just like if you care about it, it is the way to go. If you don't care about it, then like do whatever. But if you are a paranoid person, like I would not do email-based 2FA, and I would not do SMS-based 2FA. I would do like Google Authenticator style or like a YubiKey style authentication. You get used to it. You remember the keys to your car, don't you? Like, you'll remember the keys to your computer eventually. You just got to make sure to buy a couple.
Should we differentiate here between like initial verification versus two-factor? Because I think I guess it's fine like if they want to verify like you are actually capable of logging into the email that you're setting up the account with, or like if you're setting up an account with a phone number, like you are actually the owner of that phone. So I guess like it's fine in that context, but then after that it should be, like you said, Google Authenticator.
So I typically agree with Andre, but on this one I disagree. He says don't use 2FA unless it's the RSA key fobs. It can be used as an attack vector. Use strong, unique passwords for every account and don't get phished. Well, that's the problem. Like you don't have to get phished to lose your password. Some dumb company can just be storing it in like an insecure way, and it can be breached and your account can be broken into before you even know what's going on. Now, of course, you can make that less probable by not reusing passwords. So my suggestion would be like use a password manager so you can make strong, unique passwords for every account and just remember one, and have good, strong security on that password manager. So that like reduces your attack surface to one thing you can really pay attention to. And then I would also say like absolutely use 2FA. But do go like Authenticator or YubiKey. Like it does take an extra step of getting used to. And the Bluetooth ones, like for me, like took a little bit of getting used to as well. But I've managed to use them on my most secure and lockdown accounts, and like I've never not been able to get into them. Like again, I am a little bit more of an advanced user, but the basic like Google Authenticator ones are so easy, provided you set them up on like maybe a couple devices, so that you don't just have one device. It's like if that were to break, you couldn't get into your stuff. Be mindful of that sort of thing. But like for me, I have a hardware security key, and I have a one-time password on my phone. And those two things combined have been enough of a layer of security that if one of my passwords gets breached and someone tries to log into my account, I immediately know about it, because you just have too many accounts on the internet, frankly, to keep an eye on all of them. The best you can do is make sure they have long, random passwords that aren't shared in other places and haven't been breached in data dumps. And that's really where a password manager really super helps.
Yeah.
So I do agree, like it can be wrong, like it can be sketchy to set up 2FA and then think you have everything covered. But personally, like, I've been phished because like I'm a huge target for that sort of thing. And people put a lot of work and energy into this sort of thing. And it was 2FA that saved my ass. So, because at least you get the notification, someone's trying to get in, and it instantly gives you a window into, oh, something is now happening, and I'm falling back on one layer of security that I should never have to. So I still highly recommend 2FA. It's not that hard to learn, and people really need to get used to it, because password just doesn't do anything anymore when it comes to keeping you secure, especially if you're reusing passwords or they're short.
I would say even the weaker forms of 2FA are better than nothing, right? So like, if you're between like just using a password on a website and enabling 2FA, and you only have SMS 2FA, like still enable it, right? Like I don't think it's so bad that like you should never use it, but there's better options. Yeah,
because like if someone has a YubiKey, or if they're using a Google one-time password thing that's set up on a phone, it means you need to get personal, which is like, a lot of, if you can do things remotely, if you can figure out their phone number and call around and switch their service, you don't need to be anywhere near that person to strike. But, physical hardware tokens, or like something that's like actually specifically on a phone, like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I guess you could like send that guy a 0-day and then start watching his Android phone screen and then like get him to log in and then intercept it somehow. But that is so much more complicated. And you've just basically made it much more difficult, and you've reduced the type of adversary who can actually be effective against you, from like people who have like $20 to buy a data dump to people who are actually targeting you personally for some reason and willing to get into your physical space.
Yeah. Okay, here's another question. Have you ever tried writing NIM script? NIM script? I wrote an undetectable persistent backdoor, and only 2 antiviruses can detect it, and I've never heard of them.
Mr. Hyde, I'm going to need you to elaborate, because I don't know what a NIM script is.
Yeah. Neither do I.
Hey.
Okay, here, let's do another question. You should do something like best hacker Christmas tree picture contest with cats for a Christmas special.
I'm open to that. If you guys got cat pictures, send them in. We'll send you something.
Yes.
We'll find something.
I will find a way to use your cat pictures. Send me your cat pictures.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
And if the cat can be hacking, even better.
I mean, sure. But of course, we're gonna do some other stuff for the holidays, like probably like our top gift guide or things that we are really excited about that are out, and maybe you guys should be aware of. And a couple other holiday stuff. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll do some holiday stuff. The cat picture thing sounds nice though. Maybe we should incorporate that in our next Hack 5 video.
Oh, that's an idea. I like that. Sorry, I'm looking for the next
So one question was, have we ever been the target of credential stuffing? I can imagine people wanting to get at you guys with some script kidding method, like spraying the internet with leaked creds for you. Yeah, definitely. So I get alerts on, I think, my 1Password whenever there's like a data breach that involves passwords that are used. And so every once in a while I'll be like, oops, I need to go through and change those.
Yeah.
But I usually also simultaneously get notifications from people just taking credentials and just spreading them. And I don't think that I'm really targeted personally. I think this is anybody who is included in that data breach is just getting hit with like multiple login attempts. And I was going back and forth with this account I created in like 2007. So somebody like bought a data breach and then logged into this account that was like a really short username Gmail account. And basically me and this girl from India were like wrestling with this account for like 5 years, where I could reset it because it was originally set to an account that I had access to, but she still had the password and was able to also authenticate it on her phone because she'd set that up. So we both had like 2FA methods that would allow us to reset the password, and we would just periodically both reset the password on this account. And I like got all of her like school information. I could see how she was doing in class. Like I could see she like recently graduated and was going to like nursing school. And I was like, why are you in my account? These are free. But I guess like there was some reason why at that point you couldn't register a Gmail account in India, and somebody just paid to get access to this account. So like I never really used it for anything important, but like me and this girl just were like wrestling with this account back and forth forever. Eventually I just let her have it because like I don't care. But I wrote her an email from the account where I like, after reading through all the information, like made it sound like I knew everything about her. And it's just like, you know what? I've decided to get like in support of your nursing career at so-and-so school, and in celebration of your recent graduation with these grades, I've decided to gift you this account.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, I have been the victim of credential stuffing. To shorten the story, I just gave it to them as like a graduation present.
Okay. So
After getting to know them.
Clarification on the previous question. NIM is a programming language from 2006, and it's super rare. So that's why antiviruses don't detect it, because it's so uncommon.
Is it supported by anything?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. I mean, I didn't know that. Yeah, no, I don't know anything about NIM script. So, well,
I guess that's a new way to obfuscate your
it's
program.
Then again, there's a lot of programming languages that I like don't know anything about, so that doesn't really surprise me. What does surprise me is that like, a programming language I know nothing about is supported on modern platforms without installing anything else. So if that is the case, then color me even more impressed. But if not, then I kind of understand maybe why there's not a lot of malware written in that.
Is SS7 possible for non-government worker? That's like the cellular tower hack, right? I don't know. I don't think.
Anytime I hear SS7, I'm like, I'm not breaking into a phone company's switchboard.
I don't think so.
So one person says that they did the Cyber Detective CTF on the weekend, which, by the way, I did not know there was a Cyber Detective CTF, so I'm like interested in that. But yeah, they did that, and that some of my Cyber Weapons Lab videos helped them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm Googling it right now, and I can see there's a cyber. If you're phishing me, by the way, live on the stream, I'm going to be so upset, and I will not switch over until I confirm that this is not something gross. I have been betrayed before. This looks legit. Okay. So apparently it's a cyber. No, I still don't trust it. I could change it any moment. Cyber Detective CTF is an OSINT focus CTF created by Cyber Society at Cardiff University. Okay, cool.
That's really cool.
Thank you so much for not bait and switching me on this. Unless my computer was just exported, in which case I will get you.
You just clicked on the canary token.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple people that have like commented, and then like the link in their bio is just a canary token, and it doesn't even go anywhere. I'm just
great.
like, that's so lit. And I always connect to like my Japanese VPN because I can always smell it coming. I'm, like, I'm not clicking on that. So I was like, oh yeah, enjoy my location in Tokyo, Japan on my Windows NT computer.
Hey, this is cool. I had so many problems with my Pi, I just turned it into a pirate box. I love that. Pirate box is one of my favorite old like Pi projects, and like I think it's not supported anymore. I think they sunsetted it. But like, it was a really cool project for those of you that don't know, that allows you to have like a wireless dead drop, basically. So you turn the Pi into a Wi-Fi access point, and then there's got like a message board and forum, and you can drop pictures and files on it. So in theory, you could like leave it in a park somewhere. So you connect to the Wi-Fi network it produces and exchange messages with other people that have been in that geographic location.
Okay, so we switch over to my screen really quickly.
Oh.
A little bit of news to report. My drone finally bought it.
Oh,
so
no!
I've had this drone for a while. I've been updating all of you on how it's been doing. I finally killed it, you guys. This is how. All right, ready?
You shouldn't sound so excited.
Little did I
about
know
that.
there was a clock tower right here. And if anybody knows where this is, by the way, I'll be very impressed. But boom, that was the blow that caused us to plummet to the ground and eventually destroy itself. And this was the result. So I kind of listed out a lot of the different things that had been done with this drone. The most impressive, I think, was actually lifting off with a war driving kit, which our friend Alex put together from an ESP8266, a SD card module, a LiPo module, and a GPS. And with all these things combined, we were able to create a really, really awesome payload that fit on this tiny little DJI Mini 2 drone. So I was really impressed by this. I'm sorry, why is Grindr trending on Twitter? I don't want to know.
Okay.
I don't want to know. But somebody just said, I'll see then. Did you mount a Raspberry Pi / Pineapple on it? And there is absolutely no way that a Raspberry Pi or a Wi-Fi Pineapple would mount on this drone. So if you want to see a payload that is small enough to actually fit on a drone this small, then check out Alex Lynn's videos on Hack 5 about it, because this was a really cool project, and it was actually able to fly.
The Wi-Fi cat tool, the Wi-Fi nugget, can be found on Redia.io.
Or at hackcat.com, HAKCAT.com. And then I believe I have another question. This is not a question, just as someone telling me that I don't need to specify the first index in range 04.
Oh.
And for that, I thank you. This is the most cursed Circuit Python code I've ever written. And I also eventually got rid of if not we jiggling, because that was also not very Pythonic. But yeah, so that was my adventure in making the mouse jiggler. In case you didn't see the eyes, it's what we call the boing.
And one last comment on the drone's demise. Like, the cherry on top is once our friend looked up that clock tower, it was apparently infamous for being a destroyer of drones because of its close proximity to scenic areas.
Yeah. So that clock tower apparently is a little bit higher than most people think.
Yeah.
And I found that out. And then also there was a camp of homeless people at the bottom of the tower who, like, their only comment when we came to recover the drone was, "I think you hit something."
Brutal. That's brutal.
And they were right. So we have another question. And this one was already mostly answered by Alex, which was a quick question. You probably answered it before. But if I wanted to buy an ESP for the first time, which would you recommend? Which is capable of monitor mode and injection, if possible, the ESP32, the ESP8266. So Alex really, really went for this question. And basically, if you want to do attacks where you're basically arbitrarily writing packets, that's where Spaceune has done a really good job of making the ESP8266 the go-to microcontroller chip to do that. And there's lots of different projects that are based on Spaceune's work on the ESP8266, including the Marauder and a bunch of other projects that kind of use the ability to arbitrarily write packets for all sorts of creative things. Now, if you want to do other stuff, and if you want to have a more beginner-friendly, we'll call it, experience programming, then the ESP32S2, that's very important, supports USB. So that means you can plug it in and it shows up like a flash drive, and it means that programming it is as simple as dragging and dropping code, and it makes it super, super simple for beginners. Like, I'm creating animations by just, exporting BMP files and just dropping them into a folder and then playing them one by one. It's super, super easy. And I would definitely recommend CircuitPython and the ESP32S2 as a big step up from the ESP8266. Now, you cannot do arbitrary packet writing at the moment on the ESP32S2, but I still think it's a really great platform for lots of different things. Although again, there is that one shortcoming. Aside from that, though, I would just say that the ESP32 as a platform is nice, but isn't really that big of an upgrade from the ESP8266 until you get to the version that supports USB. As soon as you have that feature, it really kind of turns the corner in being much more useful for a lot of people. So I would really recommend, if you haven't already seen it, the ESP32S2, which are the two microcontrollers we support on the Wi-Fi Nugget. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So thank you to Alex also for taking charge of that thread and replying to a very good question.
Okay, so I know Google hacking, but what about Bing or Baidu hacking? Is there anything like that? And I think when they say hacking, they mean like Google dorking.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm interpreting that. So do you know Bing dorking?
Yeah, it's the same. Like,
Okay.
generally you can use the same like short expressions to do like Boolean search things and like other sorts of things that are considered more advanced search terms that will really limit the information that comes back to you. You should check to see if there's a reference for each platform because each one has unique flags that you can set. For example, Bing has an IP address lookup where you can just input an IP address and it will show you every website that's hosted on that IP address, which is really cool because I found a bunch of like organizations that are hosting different websites, but they're all on the same server. It's a good way to be able to find that sort of thing, which to me is really, really interesting and is not available with Google search. So there's definitely other ways you can use the same information to be able to work with other platforms aside from just a Google search. So, you know, DuckDuckGo, like Baidu or whatever, and then like, what is the Russian one? Yandex. Yeah, so all those ones will accept like most of the same like search values.
Okay, the final question we have from previous streams is about the extensions you use. So we have done a previous stream on extensions, but I don't know if you want to go over some of the extensions you use or just say your favorite ones.
Let's switch over to my screen.
Okay.
All right, so as you guys notice, I have a bunch of extensions all kicking around up here, and these are mostly related to OSINT work. So if you take a look at like any book by Mike Bazell about OSINT, like he goes through a lot of browser extensions that he thinks are useful. And a lot of these I think are just essential. So of course, like NoScript is one that I use all the time. It messes up a lot of web pages, but it also prevents JavaScript and a bunch of other things from running without permission. So if anything sneaky is going to try to run, this will basically stop it in its tracks. It's a good security measure to have. And then AdBlock Plus is something I keep to just make the internet tolerable. Because I cannot watch YouTube without AdBlock
until
Plus
you go to one of those websites. It's like we noticed that you have AdBlock Plus,
and I was like, I've noticed that I can right mouse click and edit the page source.
Yeah.
All right. So over here, I also have user agent switcher. Now, Michael, what's a user agent switcher, and why might I want to use it?
So user agent is just like what you telling the website or what API, like what device you're using, information about you. The reason you might want to switch that is to help anonymize who you are to some degree. So you could pretend that you're using a Windows machine when you're on an Apple or MacBook or something like that.
I use it to not pay for news. So basically what I do is there's some news sources, for example, that will let you read a story on mobile, but will make you sign up on a desktop. So what I'll do then is I will just go ahead and click on like say that I'm an iPhone or say that I'm an Android phone.
Nice.
And basically I can make my desktop computer look like a mobile device instead. So I can get web pages to load differently or data sources to render differently. For example, I think I can like upload videos to Instagram if I log in as a mobile device, because then it thinks I'm like an iPad or something, and it will give me the ability to upload videos where I cannot do that on the desktop version. So just one example of why this is a really good tool for switching around the way that a website reacts to you, because you're basically lying. You're telling your browser to lie to the website when it requests information about what kind of device is visiting, which I think is cool to lie on the internet. All right, so next up, what is this? Is this some Adobe stuff? I don't care about this. Oh, this is something to do with listening for like post requests and stuff like that.
Interesting.
APIs, that sort of thing. But I think that there's a better one right next to it. Oh, Interceptor. There we go. So Interceptor is something that will basically allow me to intercept API calls, post requests, like all sorts of stuff in order to kind of debug what's going on and look at the data that's flowing through. So if I click on Start Listening, it'll proxy my connection, and it'll allow me to see what kind of requests are going out over the
How is that different from right-click inspecting and then network?
I mean, it's in my browser, so if I click on this, then things come back. I can see right here all these recordings, get requests, and I can inspect them as I please. Yeah. So
that stuff's really useful for reverse engineering APIs and websites.
It is. So this is a video download helper. This is just for if you're ever reviewing like evidence that includes video stuff, you're going to want to download a version of that, because often it's not. If you just save the web page, it might not actually grab that source. So for anybody doing investigations that requires you to download media, this is a really good extension that will allow you to download from all different sorts of websites.
Yeah.
This is a Tor Snowflake. Do you know what a Tor Snowflake is?
I mean, I know what the Tor network is, but I don't know what a snowflake is.
So a snowflake is something you can run in your browser that allows you to run a Tor bridge to people who are in censored areas. So it basically creates a whole bunch of Tor like connections that people can join that aren't blacklisted if they're in an area like Russia or somewhere else that is currently trying to like lock down on people's ability to connect to the Tor network. So anytime that they detect a connection to the Tor network, they try to blacklist it. But this would allow like peer-to-peer connections. So they just connect to like some random browser in the United States and then back to the Tor network and kind of an end run around the ability to blacklist like large sections of the Tor network's infrastructure. So I'm basically helping censored people access or criminals access the internet.
So it's internet, or so it's a Tor endpoint?
Yes, I'm offering up a Tor endpoint to people who can't access it traditionally.
I see, so. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so then I have 1Password, which of course is my password manager. I have Nimbus Capture, which I use for capturing evidence from a website that might go down or be changed or something. So this lets me like basically screenshot and convert the entire web page into a PDF if I need to preserve evidence.
Will that save it on the Wayback Machine as well?
No, it will not. But this will. So this is the Wayback Machine.
Oh,
Thank
cool.
you, Michael.
Yeah.
And if I click on this, then I can save this version of the page right now and commit it to the Wayback Machine archive, or I can go back and see a previous version of this page. And then this is my disabled JavaScript switch, where if I just hit this, then no JavaScript can run, and I am completely safe over here away from JavaScript.
Nice.
Which I hate so much. And then I also have uBlock Origin because, AdBlock Pro is just not enough. So those two play with / fight with each other in order to keep ads away from me. And that's it. Those are my favorite browser extensions. Thank you for asking. And hopefully that was the information you wanted, because it was a lot.
Yeah. No, I think those are really useful. And again, we do have a previous live stream going more in detail about those. Also, there's a couple other ones like SSH in Chrome that allows you to just like natively use it in Chrome. So some cool stuff there.
Also, that was Firefox, Kevin Lopez. I generally prefer Firefox for most things. The only reason I have Chrome installed on my computer is because Adafruit has a really awesome ESP web flasher that allows you to write to microcontrollers from your browser using an experimental feature called Web Serial, which is super awesome, and I really, really like it. But it's not currently featured on Firefox. It's only Chrome. So because I work with a lot of microcontrollers, and this is probably the easiest way to use them, or flash them anyway, that is why I do have Chrome on my computer. But generally, I think Firefox is better, and you should probably use it.
Cool. We're about to run out of time, so if y'all have any final questions, let us know.
Funny they don't have a PHP blocker. Yeah, right? that would be great. So, all right, I've got a cursed question that we can address, just as an example of how not to get an answer.
Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, let's go over to my screen. So, getting straight to the point, I've installed Ubuntu 21.1, and many of repos have been deprecated in this release. I want to install Python 3.7.0 specifically for a certain project to which pip is not working. Also, recent Python doesn't let me install certain modules. Is there any way of installing previous repos packages that are deprecated in the latest release? If so, please let me know. I have no idea. I am so sorry. This is not only specifically a problem I've never run into, but you were using an old version of this, and I don't know how to help you.
Okay, I give this person props.
At least they let us know the operating system and the
specific
general
question.
Problem. So usually they're just my computer is broken, please help. This person at least went through the trouble of letting me know all the exceedingly specific details about their problem. But unfortunately, when it comes to getting deprecated modules to appear, someone please help this man. Because I cannot. But still, props to Ali for putting together most of this question so I could at least answer it and understand what it was about, because that is a big step ahead of most people.
The most I can help that person is I think there's some kind of version issue going on there. So they're trying to install Python. Yeah. Just wrong versions.
Yeah, and then the last question, I think we might have even covered this one. I am a 32-year-old recovering addict with absolutely no skills except the contemplation of my own existence. Well, that's where things start, isn't it?
Okay.
I'm fascinated by your YouTube channel. How can I become cybersecurity specialist? Do you think it's possible, or should I take up begging? Well, do whatever you're best at. But really, I think that if you want to get into cybersecurity and have those skills, you need to find an area you're passionate about and spend the time learning. you can't just have raw enthusiasm propel you through a cybersecurity career. You do need to align yourself to the stuff that people are looking for, like networking skills, or pen testing skills, or some of the other things you can get started with late in life. But not that 32 is late in life. But you can get started with later in life, maybe after another career. But really, like if you develop those skills and you're good at what you do, there's a huge shortage of people to be able to do this sort of work. So I would say it's probably going to pay more than begging, but depending on where you are, though.
Okay. Another question from the chat.
Yeah.
So can you use a prepaid mobile cell phone as a router to navigate anonymously without care about being tracked?
How did you pay for it? That's like the whole crux of the question is how you paid for it. If you paid for it with like a bag of soggy money and the guy didn't record your face and didn't ask any questions, and there's nothing of your identity tied to this, and you didn't bring your real phone there or drive your car there, through an area that has like license plates readers or any of the other dozen different ways, and you also didn't drive by a cop car that was recording license plates, then theoretically. But like there's like I think I just named a half dozen other ways you could have been surveilled while making that purchase. So like even if you didn't use a credit card, it's still, if you buy it anonymously, sure. But you got to purchase that data connection anonymously, which is honestly the hardest part of that whole thing. So yeah, if you have excellent OPSEC and you buy find a cell phone or something and then are able to keep it running, then yeah, I guess you could. But it really is difficult to buy something without leaving some sort of paper trail or making a mistake that would make it relatively easy to track you down if someone really wanted to.
Yeah, and that's where I talk about like threat modeling too, right? Like, are you just trying to be a little more anonymous where like all your data isn't getting tracked by like Google or something? Or are you concerned about like a nation state actor? Like, because those are two completely different things. But yeah, I think that is most of the questions for today. Did you have any closing thoughts?
One question was, do you use Kali Linux on Android? I've never been able to get NetHunter working, despite Zam's best efforts. Zam, I'm sorry. I spent 2 days trying to get NetHunter working. So no, I have not run Kali Linux on Android. I've been too cheap to buy one that's already set up and too confused to set it up myself after looking at the documentation. But if there's a good implementation of Kali Linux on Android, I would love to see it. I have done like some of the Linux emulators where I've run like Kali Linux tools, but it requires a lot of setup and a lot of installation in order to get running. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as like a first way of doing things. More like if you only have an Android device, like these are ways you can get around that liability.
So we should get the Wi-Fi adapter Linus Tech Tips had. It picks up kilometers. So we actually did a video.
I'm sorry, it picks up what?
Kilometers away.
Okay, sorry, that was just, I was like, it like sniffs up kilometers? Like, what do you, so it has a, you're saying?
It has a range of...
I'm sorry, Michael might be making you think we live in Canada or something, but we use miles around here, Michael. So, like, why are you...
The plot thickens, but Linus Tech Tips does live in Canada.
Okay, well, we don't. So please use miles when we're talking about distance on the stream.
So you can pick up miles away, and in fact, one of the first videos on this channel actually looks at that. But, a lot of times it can be very... rough. Like you need to be using like 2.4 gigahertz. You need to have a directional antenna, and you need to be like clear line of sight normally to get much more than a couple 100 meters.
Okay, this is gonna be the last question. Has either of you reported any bugs or vulnerabilities, Michael?
I'm sorry to admit I have not.
So I've reported multiple bugs and vulnerabilities. My most recent one was a security camera that was set up in a doctor's office that was basically not configured. So anybody within Wi-Fi range could connect to the camera and listen through the audio and also see through the camera. So it was open authentication. Anybody can join, creating an access point. And these people were just like processing insurance and doing other like health insurance data stuff,
Spooky.
like right next to this camera, which was plugged into Ethernet, but nobody had ever bothered to set up doing like the Wi-Fi access point. So I had to go and figure out, like by playing the video for the doctor's office I was actually in, which nearby doctor's office it was, and then knock on doors until I found the person responsible and explain the problem and how, and the next time they actually did shut it down. So a lot of the time you end up like explaining these vulnerabilities and nobody ever does anything about it. But that was the last one that I reported actually was taken care of, which was kind of cool. I also told my doctor's office to take the administrator version of PowerShell off of the exam computers, which are never locked. I was like, hey, so why do you guys have PowerShell on these? Because I can just open that as an administrator. Like, oh, well, you see, we do everything through the cloud. So if you were to hack this silly little thing, it wouldn't matter. It's like, what if I was logging your keystrokes and I got your password for your stupid online portal? So like, I eventually managed to convince someone at my doctor's office to remove PowerShell from the computers they left unlocked with patients for extended periods of time. That one almost gave me a stroke. But anyway, yeah, so that's what it's like to report vulnerabilities. It's usually like a company you interact with like in your daily life because you are a customer of them and don't want them to be breached. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Kevin is also like, I am unable to visualize call loggers. Thank you. I'm not the only one.
But our other viewers feel personally attacked because they're Canadian.
Well, you can feel that way in Canada. over here we use miles. All right. Thank you all very much for joining us today. It was nice to have Michael emerge from the woods in order to answer some questions. I imagine Alex will probably be back on our next stream, so I hope you guys used up all your cryptozoology questions because he is not equipped to answer them. If you want to see some more great Varonis content, you can check out the Brand Varonis channel where our sometimes co-host Killian will go through the latest threats on the threat update. And Michael has also been cutting together our Friday streams to make some interesting additional content. Michael, why did that stop?
Well.
All right. Well, anyway, stay tuned for that more because we'll have more of those broken out episodes featuring specific topics, which honestly were really good. So we'll see you guys next time. Next time we go live is on Friday. So we'll catch you all then, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.